Summer 1943, Camp Crossville, Tennessee. The brown liquid fizzing in the bottle mesmerized Obergefreiter Klaus Richter, who had never seen anything quite like it. After 2 years fighting in North Africa, subsisting on hard biscuits and ersatz coffee made from roasted grain, this sweet carbonated drink called Coca-Cola represented an impossibility made real, a small glass bottle containing something that seemed almost magical. It cost 5 cents from the camp canteen. 5 cents. The same price, guards informed him with casual indifference, that American children paid with their weekly allowances at corner stores across the nation. He held the cold bottle carefully, watching bubbles rise through the dark syrup, hearing the gentle hiss of carbonation that sounded like nothing in his experience. The first sip, sweet, fizzy, cold, was a revelation. It tasted like nothing he'd encountered in Germany, where even sugar had been rationed since 1939. Across American prison camps that summer, 371,683 German POWs would confront a reality that contradicted everything Nazi propaganda had taught them about American weakness, about democratic decay, about the inevitability of German triumph. They discovered a nation where ice cream was routine dessert, not special occasion luxury. Where soft drinks were everyday beverages, not exotic imports. Where candy bars were so common, so abundant, that guards gave them away to children without thought. These simple foods, treats that most German children had never tasted, luxuries that had vanished from German life years earlier, would systematically demolish Nazi ideology more effectively than any propaganda program, any re-education lecture, any forced confession. The mathematics of abundance were being written in sugar and carbonation, in chocolate and frozen cream, revealing an American industrial capacity that rendered German deprivation not noble sacrifice for victory, but needless suffering imposed by failed leadership. What began as amazement at American confections would evolve into complete psychological transformation, changing enemy soldiers into witnesses of democratic prosperity. The Afrika Korps surrender in Tunisia during May 1943 brought approximately 250,000 German and Italian soldiers into Allied captivity. These veteran desert fighters, men who had pushed the British back to Egypt under Rommel's brilliant leadership, who had fought with skill and courage across thousands of miles of North African sand, expected harsh treatment as prisoners. Nazi propaganda had prepared them meticulously for American brutality. They'd been told Americans were weak, undisciplined, likely to torture prisoners. They'd been warned to expect starvation, beatings, perhaps execution. The propaganda films had shown American gangsters and criminals, suggesting this was what awaited them. Instead, within hours of surrender, they encountered American K rations. These field rations, which American soldiers routinely complained about as barely adequate, contained treasures that made German veterans' eyes widen. Crackers that weren't moldy, processed cheese that actually tasted like cheese, candy bars wrapped in paper, fruit bars made with real sugar, instant coffee that dissolved in hot water, sugar tablets for sweetening, cigarettes, real tobacco, not the awful substitutes Germans had endured. German soldiers who had survived on minimal rations for months, who had learned to make a single piece of hard bread last 2 days, treated these emergency meals as feasts worthy of celebration. According to military records preserved in the National Archives, at the processing camps in North Africa, the US Army served pancakes with maple syrup, fresh eggs fried or scrambled to order, and fresh milk foods that had vanished from German military rations years earlier, luxuries that German civilians hadn't seen since before the war began. The systematic feeding of enemies with superior food began immediately, though its psychological impact would only be understood months and years later. The Liberty ships carrying POWs across the Atlantic in summer 1943 provided intensive education in American abundance that challenged every assumption these men held about their enemies. These vessels, mass-produced at unprecedented rates, one Liberty ship completed every 42 hours at peak production at Kaiser shipyards, transported up to 30,000 prisoners monthly to the United States across submarine-infested waters. Naval records show that prisoner rations aboard these ships matched or exceeded standard crew provisions. Approximately 3,000 500 calories daily, including fresh bread baked in the ship's ovens, meat served twice daily, vegetables, and real coffee with sugar and milk freely available. The ship's refrigeration systems, standard equipment on American vessels that Germans found remarkable, maintained fresh food throughout the 2-week crossing. Refrigeration on transport ships, something German naval vessels rarely possessed, seemed like unnecessary luxury. Yet here it was, routine American practice. Most remarkably, documented accounts confirm that ice cream was served on multiple occasions during Atlantic crossings, a fact so incredible that many German officers initially refused to believe it until they tasted the frozen dessert themselves. The USS General M.B. Stewart's log from July 1943 records serving ice cream to prisoners on July 4th, using the ship's ice cream maker that produced 10 gallons per batch, enough for hundreds of men to receive a scoop of vanilla ice cream. On America's Independence Day, served to enemy prisoners in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. For men who hadn't seen ice cream since before the war, who remembered it only as a childhood treat from better times, this frozen dessert in the middle of the ocean defied understanding. They were prisoners, defeated enemies, yet they were eating ice cream while floating above German U-boats that were trying to sink supply convoys. The contradiction was stunning, incomprehensible, transformative. When ships docked at ports like Norfolk and Newport News, German POWs encountered an America that Nazi propaganda had declared impossible, a nation that shouldn't exist according to everything they'd been taught. The Norfolk Naval Base, covering 4,300 acres with extensive waterfront facilities, handled more cargo daily than major German ports like Hamburg managed weekly. The scale alone was stunning. But what captured attention was the casualness of it, all the abundance treated as routine, not exceptional. At the port exchanges, shops for dock workers, prisoners glimpsed through chain-link fences, shelves stocked with candy bars from major manufacturers like Hershey, Mars, and Nestlé. Not a few candy bars carefully displayed, but rows upon rows, dozens of varieties, each one wrapped in colorful paper. Military procurement records from 1943 show these exchanges stocked dozens of candy varieties, selling them at standard civilian prices. 5 cents for most candy bars, the same price charged at every drugstore, gas station, and corner grocery across America. The fact that dock workers, ordinary laborers, could casually purchase candy bars during their lunch breaks seemed almost obscene to men who came from a nation where chocolate had become a distant memory, available only to party elite or black marketeers. The journey inland by train provided further education in American normalcy that Germans found extraordinary. Unlike the cattle cars used for transport across Europe, the 4 0 and 8 boxcars that carried men like livestock, German POWs traveled in passenger coaches with cushioned seats, windows that opened, and bathrooms that actually worked. The dining cars served full meals to prisoners under guard. Documented menus from July 1943 show fried chicken with mashed potatoes and gravy, green beans and corn, fresh baked rolls with butter, apple pie for dessert, coffee with cream and sugar freely available. POWs discovered this wasn't special treatment designed to impress them. This was standard American rail service, what ordinary civilians experienced when traveling. The waiters served prisoners the same meals they served paying passengers, without differentiation, without ceremony. The abundance was casual, routine, unremarkable to Americans and utterly transformative to Germans who were witnessing their propaganda collapse in real time. The prison camp system constructed across America housed POWs in conditions that exceeded Geneva Convention requirements by margins that seemed impossible to German military experience. Camp Crossville, Tennessee, typical of the larger facilities, included electric lights in every barracks, hot water for showers, flush toilets that worked reliably, and steam heat for winter months. The barracks were wooden, yes, but well constructed, weatherproof, comfortable beyond what most German soldiers had known even in peacetime garrisons. But the camp exchanges, the PX stores, where prisoners could purchase items with their labor wages, delivered the deepest psychological impact. According to Army quartermaster records carefully preserved in military archives, camp exchanges stocked pepper, RC Cola, each at 5 cents per bottle. Various candy bars and confections, Hershey bars, Baby Ruth, Milky Way, Snickers, all 5 to 10 cents. Ice cream where refrigeration permitted. Cups, bars, sandwiches, cigarettes and tobacco, American brands that German soldiers coveted. Fresh fruit and snacks, apples, oranges, peanuts, beer, 3.2% alcohol content. Available in some camps, prisoners earned 80 cents daily for labor, later raised to $1. With candy bars at 5 cents and Coca-Cola at the same price, a single day's wage could purchase 16 items abundance beyond German imagination, where such products, if available at all, required special party connections or black market dealings. Coca-Cola became the symbol of American industrial democracy in ways the company never anticipated, and German prisoners never forgot. The Coca-Cola Company's wartime production reached remarkable levels that defied German understanding of rationed economies. Company records show 5 billion bottles produced in 1943 alone, enough to give every person in America 15 bottles, and still have enough for military use worldwide and export. The military contract guaranteed 5-cent Coca-Cola to American servicemen worldwide, a commitment requiring unprecedented logistics. Syrup concentrate manufactured in Atlanta, shipped to bottling plants across continents, carbonated and bottled locally, delivered to the front lines from North Africa to the Pacific Islands. German prisoners discovered that this soft drink, unknown to most before capture, exotic and strange with its bubbles and sweetness, was ubiquitous in America. Every camp received regular deliveries by the truckload. Work details outside camps observed vending machines and coolers everywhere, gas stations, factories, schools, corner stores. Americans of all ages and classes drank it casually, thinking nothing of it. Children bought it with allowance money. Workers drank it on lunch breaks. Families served it at dinner. And disturbingly to German observers, Americans often discarded half-empty bottles without thought waste that would have been criminal in Germany. The standardization astounded technically minded prisoners who understood quality control. Coca-Cola tasted identical whether consumed in Maine or Texas, in summer or winter, in a city or small town, a feat of quality control and distribution that exceeded anything German industry had achieved even in peacetime. The syrup concentrate manufactured in Atlanta and distributed nationwide to hundreds of bottling plants represented industrial coordination that challenged Nazi assumptions about American chaos and democratic inefficiency. Ice cream in American prison camps seemed impossible to Germans who hadn't seen this frozen luxury since before the war began. Yet army records confirmed that ice cream was regularly served in camps with adequate refrigeration during summer months, and American camps, even temporary ones, seemed to have refrigeration everywhere. The military considered ice cream essential for morale, so important that specialized ice cream ships were built for the Pacific Fleet floating ice cream factories that could produce thousands of gallons weekly for sailors and Marines fighting in tropical heat. At Camp Shelby, Mississippi, the July 4th, 1943 celebration included ice cream made on-site using hand-cranked freezers, a festive activity that prisoners watched with amazement. They saw Americans using ice in July ice, combined with salt to lower temperatures, adding cream, sugar, and vanilla to create frozen dessert for entertainment purposes. The casual use of scarce resources ice in summer, fresh cream, refined sugar for what was essentially entertainment food demonstrated priorities Germans couldn't fathom. These were strategic materials in Germany, rationed strictly, reserved for essential uses. Here they were being used to make frozen desserts for prisoners. By 1944, many camps had electric ice cream makers, mechanical devices that could produce gallons of ice cream daily without human effort. The variety available exceeded what German ice cream parlors had offered before the war. Chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, butter pecan, mint chocolate chip. Prisoners could purchase ice cream bars for 10 cents, ice cream sandwiches for the same price, or cups of various flavors. Some camps even had ice cream sundae stations where prisoners could add chocolate syrup, nuts, whipped cream, and cherries. layers of excess piled on excess. Army procurement records show that larger camps ordered 50 to 100 gallons of ice cream weekly during summer months. The frequency varied by location and season, but prisoners regularly enjoyed this frozen luxury that had completely vanished from German life, that existed now only in childhood memories from before the darkness descended. Sugar consumption in American prison camps delivered particularly powerful psychological impact to prisoners who understood intimately what sugar rationing meant. In Germany, sugar was strictly rationed at 280 grams monthly. When available, often it wasn't available at all, and families made do with substitutes or simply went without sweetness in their lives. In American camps, refined white sugar sat in bowls on mess hall tables for unlimited use. Prisoners could take as much as they wanted, sweeten their coffee to taste, add multiple spoonfuls to cereal, use it freely without accounting or rationing. Quartermaster records from 1943 to 1945 show camps receiving 100-pound bags of refined sugar, weekly more sugar in a week than a German family might see in a year. Camp bakeries used sugar liberally, without the careful measurement that characterized German baking since rationing began. Cakes appeared on tables covered in frosting. Cookies were thick with sugar. Pies contained fruit cooked in sweet syrup. The mess halls sweetened coffee, tea, cereals, and desserts without restriction or concern. Sugar was simply available, abundant, unlimited. The concept was difficult to process for men conditioned to measure every gram, to make sugar cubes last, to remember when sweetness was routine rather than rare luxury. One documented incident from Camp Aliceville, Alabama, illustrates the contrast with devastating clarity. In August 1943, humid weather hardened several hundred pounds of sugar in storage, making it difficult to use. Rather than taking the time to steam it soft and recover it as Germans would have done, treating each grain as precious American kitchen staff, simply discarded it and ordered replacement supplies. Several hundred pounds of sugar, thrown away, replaced without thought. German prisoners working in the kitchen were reportedly distressed by this waste, some visibly upset, one man apparently weeping at the casual destruction of what would have fed families for months in Germany. American chocolate consumption patterns revealed democratic abundance in its purest form, luxury made so common that it ceased to be luxury at all. Major manufacturers Hershey, Mars, Nestlé produced millions of bars monthly despite wartime restrictions. The military alone purchased £380 million of chocolate products during the war years, enough to give every American serviceman several bars weekly. Prison camp exchanges stocked multiple chocolate varieties with a selection that would have graced pre-war German specialty shops. The standard Hershey bar, 5 cents. D-rations, emergency chocolate bars. Milky Way, Snickers, Baby Ruth. Butterfinger, chocolate-covered nuts and fruits. Various regional brands. Prisoners discovered that Americans had preferences among chocolate brands, that people would choose one over another based on personal taste rather than availability. The concept of choosing chocolate, of having enough variety to develop preferences, seemed almost decadent to men from a nation where obtaining any chocolate required connections or luck. Red Cross packages distributed monthly to prisoners included chocolate bars among other items that seemed impossible to men from occupied Europe. The American Red Cross records show that standard parcels contained chocolate or candy bars, 2 packages of instant coffee, processed cheese, crackers, canned meat, Spam or similar, cigarettes, soap. These packages supplemented regular rations, providing luxury items that exceeded what German civilians received as basic necessities. The monthly delivery of packages to enemy prisoners, coordinated across hundreds of camps, demonstrated organizational capacity and humanitarian commitment that contradicted everything Nazi propaganda had taught about American character. Thanksgiving 1943 introduced German prisoners to American holiday abundance that defied every economic calculation they understood. This purely American celebration, unknown in Europe, incomprehensible in its extravagance, demonstrated national coordination of consumption that dwarfed German organizational efforts. Army records confirm that all prison camps served traditional Thanksgiving dinner: roast turkey with stuffing, mashed potatoes and gravy, sweet potatoes with marshmallows, cranberry sauce, green beans and corn, pumpkin pie with whipped cream, coffee and milk freely available. The logistics required to provide turkey dinners to 425,000 POWs, plus millions of American servicemen worldwide, showcased organizational capacity that seemed almost magical. Fresh turkeys had to be raised, slaughtered, transported, and cooked simultaneously across hundreds of locations. The fact that German prisoners received the same meal as American soldiers, identical portions, identical quality, emphasized equality of treatment that contradicted Nazi racial hierarchy. Enemy soldiers ate turkey while their own armies rationed horse meat. Christmas, 1943, brought unexpected generosity from American civilians that shattered German expectations about how enemies should be treated. Church groups, civic organizations, and individuals sent packages to German POWs, to men whose armies were killing American sons and brothers. The American Friends Service Committee alone distributed 50,000 Christmas packages to enemy prisoners. These packages typically contained homemade cookies and candy, toiletries, soap, toothpaste, razors, games and books, cigarettes, writing materials. Local communities near camps often provided additional support with personal gestures that Germans found incomprehensible. In Tonkawa, Oklahoma, townspeople delivered homemade treats to German prisoners at Camp Tonkawa. In Hearne, Texas, church groups brought Christmas cookies and candy to Camp Hearne. This civilian kindness toward enemies challenged Nazi ideology at its foundation. Americans who had family members fighting against Germany nevertheless showed charity to German prisoners, demonstrating strength through mercy rather than vengeance, confidence through generosity rather than cruelty. As labor shortages intensified in 1944, German POWs worked increasingly outside camps, witnessing American food production firsthand and gaining intimate knowledge of where abundance came from. By 1944, approximately 100,000 prisoners worked in agriculture and food processing across the nation, from Michigan cherry orchards to Nebraska sugar beet fields to Texas cotton farms. In Michigan orchards, prisoners picked cherries destined for maraschino production, those bright red garnishes topping ice cream sundaes and cocktails. The volume staggered them. Single orchards producing tons of fruit for purely decorative purposes, for adding color to desserts. At canneries, prisoners observed quality control that rejected perfectly edible food for minor imperfections, blemishes, irregular size, slight discoloration. Del Monte records from 1944 show approximately 15% of fruit rejected for canning due to such cosmetic issues, typically diverted to animal feed rather than human consumption. German prisoners, conditioned to treat every scrap as precious, found this waste almost physically painful to witness. Sugar beet processing in Colorado and Nebraska revealed agricultural mechanization beyond German achievement, showing why American sugar was abundant while German sugar was memory. Single American farms produced more sugar beets than entire German regions cultivated collectively. Prisoners learned that American sugar production from both cane, Louisiana, Florida, Hawaii, and beets, western states, reached approximately 7 million tons annually, explaining the casual abundance they witnessed in camp mess halls. The mechanization impressed technical observers. Automated planters, mechanical harvesters, processing plants that operated continuously. One factory could process more beets daily than dozens of German facilities combined. German prisoners working near schools witnessed early versions of organized school lunch programs that would be formalized in the National School Lunch Act of 1946. Children received hot lunches, including milk, protein, vegetables, and fruit nutrition programs that invested in future generations, while German children scrounged for scraps. The milk program particularly impressed observers. Many schools provided fresh milk to children daily, sometimes chocolate milk as a treat. The logistics of daily delivery to thousands of schools demonstrated organizational capacity that Germany couldn't achieve for military supplies, let alone civilian nutrition. Some school cafeterias offered ice cream for additional purchase, 10 cents for a cup or bar. The concept of children buying frozen desserts at school while German children faced hunger created profound psychological impact among prisoner observers. When minimum security prisoners ate at American diners under guard supervision, they encountered democratic abundance in its most accessible form. These small restaurants, ubiquitous across America, offered menus that would have graced elite German establishments before the war, available to anyone with modest funds. No reservations or social status required. Documented prices from 1944 show: hamburger, 25 cents, Coca-Cola, 5 cents, pie slice, 15 cents, ice cream sundae, 25 cents, full dinner special, 65 to 75 cents. The equality of service contradicted German social stratification deeply. A factory worker and bank president ate identical meals at adjacent counter stools, served by the same waitress, for the same price, treated with equal courtesy. As prisoners gained access to American publications, magazines, newspapers freely available in camp libraries, they discovered production statistics that dwarfed German efforts. 1,944 American production. Sugar, to 7 million tons. Chocolate divided by cocoa products, 380 million pounds. Military alone. Coca-Cola, 5 billion bottles, 1,943 figure. Ice cream is greater than 500 million gallons. Milk, 119 billion pounds. German production, same period. Sugar, heavily rationed, primarily from beets. Chocolate, military priority only. Minimal civilian. Soft drinks, minimal production. Ice cream, virtually non-existent. Milk, severely rationed. These numbers, published openly in American media without concern for enemy knowledge, demonstrated that America's wartime production exceeded Germany's peacetime peaks, and they did it while also producing tanks, planes, and ships in quantities that defied comprehension. By late 1944, an extraordinary reversal occurred that symbolized German defeat more powerfully than any military statistic. German POWs were sending food packages to Germany rather than receiving them. Using camp wages earned from labor, prisoners purchased American products to mail home. Chocolate bars, Hershey, Mars, instant coffee, Nescafe, canned goods, Spam, candy. Cigarettes' International Red Cross records confirm this reversal. German prisoners in America sent approximately 11 million parcels to Germany during their captivity, most containing food items purchased from American stores. The psychological impact on German families receiving American abundance from imprisoned relatives, while they faced starvation in freedom, profoundly undermined Nazi ideology. Fathers in American prison camps were better fed and could send food home, while mothers and children in free Germany went hungry. American rationing implemented during the war revealed the gulf between societies in ways that statistics alone couldn't capture. Americans complained bitterly about sugar rationing of £2 monthly per person, more than triple the German allowance when available. American newspapers printed angry letters about the hardship. German prisoners reading these complaints in camp libraries struggled to comprehend the perspective. Americans considered £2 monthly a severe hardship worth complaining about in newspapers. American meat rationing at 28 ounces weekly per person exceeded what Germans received monthly. Butter rationing, gasoline rationing, coffee rationing, all at levels Germans would have considered abundant luxury. Even rationed, Americans maintained consumption levels Germans considered impossible luxury, complaining about deprivations that would have seemed like feast days in occupied Europe. Beyond Coca-Cola, prisoners discovered America's soft drink industry, showcased democratic abundance through variety itself. Pepsi Cola, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, Orange Crush, and regional brands competed nationwide. The variety multiple companies producing similar products in endless flavors demonstrated market abundance impossible under German-controlled economy, where scarcity meant no choice. Bottling plants operated in every major city with standardized technology. Carbonation, bottling, capping, labeling performed efficiently. Single plants produced millions of bottles annually, distribution networks reaching every small town. American soft drink production reached billions of bottles annually by war's end, dozens of bottles per citizen yearly. This single industry's output exceeded entire sectors of German consumer production. Spring 1945 brought the final psychological blow to remaining Nazi believers among prisoners. As American forces advanced through Germany, German POWs in America watched newsreels of GIs distributing chocolate and chewing gum to German children, their own children, often receiving American generosity, while the Reich that promised triumph delivered starvation. The contrast was devastating. American soldiers advancing through enemy territory carried enough candy to give away, while the German state couldn't feed its own children. Films of concentration camp liberations showed American troops sharing rations with skeletal survivors, demonstrating humanity toward victims of the regime German soldiers had served, willingly or unwillingly. Between 1945 to 1946, German POWs returned to destroyed homeland carrying contradictions their families struggled to comprehend. Many prisoners had gained significant weight in American captivity, while their families lost weight to starvation in German freedom. Medical examinations showed German POWs generally returned healthier than when captured, better nourished, better rested, often heavier. They brought knowledge of abundance to a land of absolute scarcity, carrying final Red Cross packages home: chocolate, coffee, canned goods that became family treasures. Children who had forgotten chocolate's taste received Hershey bars from fathers who had eaten ice cream regularly in prison camps. Former POWs became unexpected advocates for the Marshall Plan, influencing German acceptance of American aid. They had witnessed American abundance that wasn't zero-sum prosperity through production rather than conquest. Their testimony that Americans could afford to rebuild enemies carried weight with skeptical Germans. These men understood American power came from productive capacity, not extraction. They had seen a society wealthy enough to waste food while fighting global war. This mental model creation, rather than conquest, shaped West Germany's economic approach. The German economic miracle of the 1950 seconds was partially built on knowledge gained in American prison camps. Former POWs who had witnessed American production methods, distribution systems, and consumer abundance applied these lessons to German reconstruction. They had learned mass production could make luxuries affordable. Standardization enabled quality and efficiency. Consumer abundance created political stability. Industrial democracy could outproduce authoritarian control. These lessons, learned through Coca-Cola and ice cream, shaped a generation of German business and political leaders. The transformation of German POWs through American food abundance is documented extensively in military quartermaster records, International Red Cross reports, corporate production records, particularly Coca-Cola archives, POW correspondence censored but preserved, post-war interviews and quarter records, memoirs, academic studies, particularly Arnold Kramer's extensive research. Arnold Kramer, the leading historian of German POWs in America, concluded that food abundance was central to ideological transformation, that casual American plenty accomplished what formal re-education programs couldn't: complete demolition of Nazi superiority myths. The numbers tell an irrefutable story. Average POW consumption 1,943 to 1,946. Daily calories 3,300 to 3,600. Sugar 4 pounds monthly available. Meat 32 ounces weekly. Milk 1 quart daily available. Ice cream served regularly during summer. Soft drinks unlimited at 5 cents each. German civilian rations, same period. Daily calories 1,200 to 1,500. Sugar 280 grams monthly when available. Meat 10.5 ounces weekly, often. Milk severely rationed. Ice cream non-existent. Soft drinks, none available. These disparities weren't propaganda, but documented reality. Enemy prisoners ate better than German civilians. The POW experience with American food culture influenced post-war Germany profoundly. Coca-Cola returned to West Germany in 1949, becoming symbol of American alliance. Ice cream parlors modeling American soda fountains appeared in German cities. Candy bars and chewing gum became symbols of recovery. Former POWs often became importers of American food products, understanding their appeal from personal experience. They knew these products represented more than taste. They symbolized abundance, democracy, and modernity. The introduction of supermarkets to Germany in the 1950 seconds was championed by former POWs who had witnessed American grocery stores. They understood that democratic abundance required new distribution methods, not just production increases. The self-service concept, wide aisles stocked with variety, weekly shopping trips, all learned from observing American civilian life. In various post-war interviews and memoirs, German POWs consistently identified food abundance as transformative. A former Afrika Korps officer stated in 1975, "We expected to defeat a weak, divided America. Instead, we found a nation that could give ice cream to enemies. That's when we knew we had lost more than a war, we had lost our entire worldview." Another veteran interviewed for 1985 documentary recalled, "My first Coca-Cola was like drinking the future. It was sweet, fizzing, completely unnecessary, and available to anyone for a nickel. That drink contained everything Nazi Germany wasn't: abundant, democratic, joyful." Historians recognize the German POW experience in America as remarkably successful re-education through abundance rather than propaganda. The program succeeded because it relied on observation rather than instruction. POWs saw American society functioning at peak productivity while treating enemies with dignity. The food aspect was crucial because it was universal. Everyone understands hunger and satisfaction. Undeniable. Weight gain and health improvement were visible. Continuous. 3 meals daily plus canteen purchases. Comparative. Prisoners knew German deprivation intimately. Children of POWs grew up hearing about American abundance in prison camps. These stories, initially seeming fantastic, were validated as West Germany recovered and American products became available. The mythology of American plenty, born in prison camps, shaped generations of German-American relations. Many POW children later studied or worked in America, drawn by their fathers' stories of impossible abundance. Today, McDonald's operates over 1,400 restaurants in Germany. Coca-Cola is ubiquitous. Ice cream is ordinary. The transformation from scarcity to abundance, initiated in American prison camps, is complete. Yet the historical lesson remains powerful. Ideological transformation through abundance rather than deprivation, kindness rather than cruelty, demonstration rather than propaganda. The German POWs, who couldn't believe ice cream and Coca-Cola in American prison camps, witnessed democracy's ultimate weapon. The ability to create such abundance, it could be casually shared with enemies. The story represents history's most unusual victory. A war won through generosity, an ideology defeated by ice cream, a worldview shattered by soft drinks. These men experienced transformation not through punishment but through plenty. They arrived believing in German superiority and American weakness. They left understanding that American strength came from productive capacity so vast it could waste resources without concern. The society that could give Coca-Cola to prisoners for 5 cents possessed power beyond military might. The ice cream sundae with its layers of excess became metaphor for American abundance. Former POWs often recalled specific moments of revelation: the first Coca-Cola's fizz, the first spoonful of ice cream, the first bite of a Hershey bar. These sensory memories carried more power than any argument. They had tasted democracy, and it was sweet. The transformation was complete and irrevocable. Men who had marched for the Third Reich returned as apostles of abundance, carrying the revolutionary message that prosperity came from freedom, not conquest. They had learned that America's secret weapon wasn't military might, but the ability to give ice cream to enemies. In the end, the bottles of Coca-Cola and dishes of ice cream served in American prison camps achieved what armies could only attempt: the complete transformation of enemy hearts and minds. The German POWs, who couldn't believe such abundance existed, became its greatest witnesses, carrying home the truth that democracy tasted like chocolate and freedom fizzed like carbonation. Their story reminds us that sometimes the greatest victories are won not through destruction but through demonstration, not through taking but through giving, not through hatred but through the simple act of serving ice cream to enemies on a hot summer day. The men who experienced American abundance as prisoners became freedom's most unlikely ambassadors, transformed forever by the impossible reality of Coca-Cola and ice cream in American prison camps.